Hey everyone, Lance here. I've got another little Mac project that I've been wanting to do for a little while, and that's put two SSDs into my 2012 Mac Mini. Currently it has a single 512 gig or 500 gig mechanical drive, and I've got two crucial 512 gig SSDs to put in there, along with an Otherworld Computing dual hard drive kit. So these are both 512 gig crucial SSDs. Like I said, this is an MX100, which used to be my old boot drive in my PC, which I've replaced with a Samsung 850 EVO, and I've got this M550 from Crucial, which is brand new. Both of these are very similarly spec'd. Here I've got the iFixit toolkit, which I'll be using to open up the Mac Mini, and also a nice pentalobe screwdriver here. On this USB stick, I've got a USB installer for the 10.13 High Sierra developer beta, which I am already running here, and I have already converted my drive to APFS, but before I did do that, I ran some disk speed tests with Blackmagic Disk Test, and I've run those again now. So when I do the clean install on the SSDs, I'll first do Mac OS Extended Journaled, test it, and then I'll do APFS and test that so we can get a good comparison of Apple's new file system that will be coming with High Sierra. I'm going to be putting the two SSDs into JBOD concatenated format, so it looks like a 1TB drive, as with the 500 gig mechanical drive that's in there with my video projects is getting very full very quickly, so a bigger drive would work a lot better than having either of these in RAID 1 or RAID 0. Now those are the three formats that the disk utility for Mac supports. So yeah, the JBOD concatenated format. And El Capitan also added trim support for third-party SSDs. So I'm really hoping that I should get quite good performance by putting these two drives in. So we've got our work area set up. Now these are the three little packets that are in the Otherworld Computing kit. Now there's a tiny metal bracket here and some rubber grommets. There's this, which looks like it's just a bit of aluminium foil, and then the little ribbon tape for the second drive. There's also an instruction guide, of course, which we'll be following to do this, and of course then the second drive in here is brand new, so we'll open that one up and we'll see what we have. So those do look similar, a little bit different but very similar. The Mac decided it was going to start to the Windows install that was on that drive that I put in here. Like I said earlier, it was the drive from my PC, but we can see that it's got my Mac specs here. We've got the i5 3210M 2.5 GHz. It is only seeing one stick of RAM, so I may need to reseat the RAM after doing all of that. But it boots, just not to Mac OS. Alright, so we're on the Mac OS 10.13 High Sierra installer, or USB installer. Now what we needed to do, because it was booting to my old Windows partition, we used target disk mode to format the drives and then put them in the JBOD concatenate format to force the Mac, when it was booting, to go to the USB installer. Now I had to do that because this monitor is very inconsistent with the Mac booting to it, because it is an unsupported resolution, and I am using my external GPU, which of course has no sort of boot selector support, so we had to basically force it to only have one boot partition, being the USB installer, and then just leaving it to boot and get to the installer, which thankfully also has eGPU support. So I'm going to go ahead and install Mac OS. We've now noticed that it says you may not install to this volume because it is Apple RAID and the drive is grayed out. So what we're going to do instead is convert the two drives to a core storage volume, essentially making it the same as the Apple Fusion drives are when they ship, and that will get us around that, so I can still have it appearing as one 1 terabyte drive. First things first, we want to go to Terminal from the Utilities menu in Recovery. So it's going to bring up this Terminal window. I'll zoom this in so you guys can see. And the first command we want to type is disk util space list, and that will show us a list of all of our drives. Now I have no idea why it's saying I have 23 disks, but it doesn't matter too much. The only ones that matter are the two that are 512 gigabytes, which are these two. So that is what we need here, the location of the disk, /dev/disk 0 and /dev/disk 1. So the next command we want to type is disk util space core storage with a capital S and no space, and then create. And then we want to give this drive a name. So let's try Macintosh HD. The backslash will of course ignore the next character, which is a space, and add it to the name rather than think it's the next part of the command. And then we want drive 1, so up the top, like we have here, /dev/disk 0, DEV/disk 0, and then the second disk, which is /dev/disk 1, and then hit return. And it should run through this and create the logical volume. So now we need to copy this UUID here. Then we want to type disk util space core storage space create volume space and then the UUID. So now we want to put in the type, the name, and the size. So for type, we want JHFS Plus, which is the traditional Mac format. We then want to put the name, which I'm going to put as Macintosh HD. That needs to be in double quotes. And then for size, I want to make use of the entire disk, so we can use 100%. Then we'll hit return, and then it's creating that logical volume. And that is completed. So now we want to quit terminal, and we should be able to install the Mac OS. So we're in a clean install of Mac OS 10.13, and we can see here that it's actually automatically recognized it as a Fusion drive in disk utility with 1.02 terabytes of storage. About this Mac shows a little bit funny. It's showing a 512 gig solid state drive and another 512 gigabyte solid state drive, but to the right of those with the bar, it shows 1.02 terabytes. These two seem to basically be mirrored from each other and identical, but Finder still only shows one drive, so I think it is working correctly. What I wanted to do was run a Blackmagic disk speed test and see how fast the drive was running, or the drives are running. Now I have already run this, and it's a ridiculous performance increase over the mechanical drive. When previously I had about the 70 to 80 megabyte per second mark on the write speed, I now am getting 431 megabytes per second on the write and about 475 on the read. So that's a huge jump in performance. What I also want to do is a quick Final Cut test, as I wanted to compare this now with the SSDs to how it was before, and then I'm going to convert it to Apple File System, APFS, that was introduced with 10.13, and run those same tests, the Final Cut test and the disk speed test. I've got Final Cut Pro here, and I've got a 5-minute project of 120 frames per second 1080p GoPro footage. I've trimmed it down to exactly 5 minutes, and I've cut it at exactly 2.5 minutes and added a fade to black transition. This is the same test I ran in my previous video where I tested the difference between High Sierra and with native eGPU support and 10.12.5 with GoldQ script. So I'm going to run this again and see the difference I get with the SSD. I previously got 9 minutes. So I'm going to go Share and Master File, and Next, and I will save it to Documents, Save, and start the timer, and we'll leave that to run and see how we go. So we've just finished that render of that 5-minute project, and it took 7 minutes and 20 seconds. So that's shaved about 1:40 off the time it took with a mechanical drive. So I'm going to convert the file system to APFS, Apple File System, and we'll see how we go in that. The drive is now set up as APFS with everything set up that I need to do my tests. Now, interestingly enough, in About This Mac, it only shows as a single drive now, and in Disk Utility, it only shows as a single drive as well. Not even a drive and a partition, just a single drive. So I'm going to run Blackmagic again, and we'll see how we go. I have done a couple of Blackmagic tests already, and the results are reasonably interesting. I'm hoping you guys can see this. So on the right, we're getting at about 450 megabytes per second. And on the read, we get just over 500 megabytes per second. So a small bump on the write, and on the read, quite a decent bump there. And I'm going to go ahead and redo that Final Cut project. I've still got the project file on an external drive, and I'm going to run that, time it, and see how I go. Sorry there was no screen recording in the last part. It appears that QuickTime Player becomes unresponsive whenever I start a screen recording. But I have run that Final Cut render test again, and this time I got 6 minutes and 59 seconds. So I shaved another 21 seconds off the time. So I've gone from 9 minutes in High Sierra with a mechanical drive to just under 7 minutes with SSDs in High Sierra. So about 2 minutes time roughly saved, so I'm pretty happy about that. And something interesting to note as well was with that Blackmagic disk speed test in APFS, every now and then the write speed would drop right down to about 370 megabytes per second. I'd run the test again and it will be back up to about 450 megabytes per second again. That is quite interesting, but it's still either way a massive jump in performance over that mechanical drive. But that is about all I wanted to cover in this video, guys. I do thank you all a lot for watching. Remember to like and subscribe, and check me out on Twitter and Instagram down below. But hey, I'll see you in the next one. And also an iFixit toolkit.